Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Eric. That's my pal Dave, playing with his horse.
This is very tense.
What is happening?
I'm playing Buckaroo.
Okay.
Keep it going. Be a pro.
All right. Thank you, Dave, for going and being a buckaroo. Everybody that's watching on Twitch, thank you for joining us. Everybody that is watching us on YouTube, I hope you're enjoying the edit that Dave has put together for this wonderful video with all the graphics and designs and him playing buckaroo. And, of course, most importantly, you got to hit that rate and subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. It really helps. And, of course, the OmniverseComics.guide is your one-stop shop for everything related to this show, to the website. We've got reading orders for people who want to get into a comic book series and want to know where to begin, what happens in the middle, where to end. Dave's reading orders are the best.
Aww,
and
thanks,
I will say that our website is pretty easy to navigate. And if you want to look up our previous episodes in the archives, we've got plenty for you to pick from. So, OmniverseComics.guide. Check us out. Dave, my pal, it's been way too long since we've done this last. It seems like you've picked up a new hobby, playing with horses or jackasses.
Have you never played Buckaroo?
We don't have Buckaroo. I've never seen Buckaroo.
Oh man, it's great. It's you just put boxes and saucepans and stuff on the donkey until it kicks. It's challenging stuff.
Let it kick.
I've got the last item now, which is a crate.
Let's do it. Let's see it kick.
So, actually, I thought you might kick when I put on the red lantern, because you know how angry red lanterns are.
That's right.
Okay.
Here we go.
I finished.
Nice.
He didn't put.
For watching Buckaroo, thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking about Ed Brubaker, not quite a buckaroo, but
Buckaroo Baker.
Buckaroo Baker, top 10 Ed Brubaker stories, graphic novels, whatever you want to call them, runs. Ed Brubaker's, I'm a big fan of his work. I would say, if you're going to recommend somebody to read one writer, where I would say 85% of the time, you're going to get your money's worth of a quality story.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't think you could get a higher ratio than that within the amount of books that he's worked on and things he's kind of known for doing. His name is a first ballot Hall of Famer. If there was a comic book writer Hall of Fame, he's a first ballot, I would say.
What about Jeff Johns? Oh.
Ooh, Jeff. Well, speaking of Jeff Johns, we just happened to have an interview with Jeff Johns recently, which was very, very cool, and we're happy to share with everybody. We've got more very cool interviews. Stay tuned for that.
Yes, we do. Stay tuned.
I don't want to spoil it. I'm excited. I want to share it, but
so do I.
It's okay. By the time this comes out, this will be old news, right? Unless we edit this part.
But it will. This will come out afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't even matter. But
yeah, it's fine.
How was it for you to come up with your top 5 Ed Brubaker books?
How was it for you? It was easy, but I think the problem we have is our favorites are probably largely the same, or at least 2 or 3 crossover. So knowing that, I thought, you know what, I want to, lately I like picking the odd single or short thing. So I wanted to find something that was just a quick hit, and I read quite a lot. He works better in a longer form, I think, for the most part. But I did find one, but I wanted to read Pulp, but I didn't get to read Pulp, and I've wanted to read that for a long time, and I just ran out of time because I was reading so many other things. And the thing, what you're saying about that hit ratio as well, there was one 4-issue miniseries I read, and I thought, that's so random. It's just not an Ed Brubaker kind of story. So be interesting to see how it plays out. Like, doesn't even read like Brubaker, doesn't, and it's like must be really early in his career.
Huh.
It was. Do you want me to say what it was? I can tell you what it was. It was Sandman Presents the Dead Boy Detectives. So it was the first Dead Boy Detectives miniseries, which spins out of Sandman.
Huh.
But I wasn't a huge fan. But it was just so surprising because you're reading it going, this is not how you write. So, I mean, it was not in his style. Maybe early days, maybe him finding his feet. So, not everyone's going to nail it every time, right?
Yeah, I think there's an art form to writers having that ability to do short, quick stories, long form stories. Like there's so many variety. Like you got some guys that are 12 issue. That's their sweet spot. When they go past that, it's almost like too long.
Mm.
And then when some guys do a short story, it's like, you needed those 25 issues to do what
Yeah.
you do. Like it's not a knock against you, but I think Ed Brubaker is one of those guys who can hit you with a good 6 issue series, and you get some quality story. And his collaborations, like with Sean Phillips, they've been known
what
to.
A pair.
Yeah.
Sorry, sounded like a compliment
absolutely.
I was giving you there for a minute.
Definitely. There's plenty of Brubaker, I will admit, that I haven't read. So for someone who's ready to give a top 5, I got a lot of blind spots, which is okay because it gives me stuff to be excited to read.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, and my problem is I always feel like I got to read everything that leads up to that.
Yeah.
So I haven't read all of Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil, so I haven't read Ed Brubaker's Daredevil. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you could read Ed Brubaker's Daredevil, but it's not the same without...
One leads into the other. It's like...
That's what and I punish myself stupidly to like, why don't you just read the Daredevil series? It'll be good. But
it's brilliant.
Yeah, there's so much in between to read and catch up on, but I got my 5.
Me
and
too.
A few extras in case we double up. So
you're first. I was first last time.
Okay. I'll just get it out of the way.
Do it.
Because you can't talk about Ed Brubaker without bringing up
Captain America.
Captain America. Now, it's very easy to choose the Winter Soldier storyline, right? It's seminal at this point. You had a whole movie series built around that sort of story. But I want to talk about somewhere in between that run, and that's the fallout of the death of Captain America.
Nice.
And they collect... So the first omnibus is like, I think, issues 1 to 25, and it ends at like the climax of Civil War.
Yes.
Which, I mean, this collects issues 22 to 42, and Winter Soldier, Winter Kills. I'm immediately invested as soon as I start reading that story.
Yeah.
Just the political intrigue.
Yeah.
Espionage side of it, the who's to blame for what happened. And then, of course, like most good deaths in comics, when the main character of the book is no longer in the book, you realize how rich or how good of a storyteller you got on your hands. Like when you read the death of Superman and then you get the funeral for a friend, like Superman's not around anymore, but you realize how rich the world is around him. Like you're invested in those characters. And that's the way this reads. You're very invested in Sharon Carter. You're very invested in the relationship between Bucky and Falcon, which is, new, and they're learning to trust each other. It's the best period of time I've read from Marvel where like all the books,
categorically, all
the books are clicking. It's so rich in its history, like appreciating all that came before it, but telling it in a modernized way where you're like, damn, this still hits. The whole Civil War issue, Tony Stark, all of it, like, and to see how they use Captain America as like this political pawn really it's a great dive into the character and what he represents and what he means to the people around him. Such a good era.
The other part that's interesting about this, I think, is, I mean, it's a big trope in comics, isn't it? To take that main character and replace him with someone else. And normally the idea, and people, when it happened during Superior Spider-Man, and people are going, no, Peter Parker Spider-Man, you're new at this, clearly, aren't you? But it does happen, or we fall for it every time, but it's fun. And what it does is it highlights why Peter Parker is Spider-Man, or it highlights why. It's like when John Walker was Captain America in the 80s, it really highlighted why Steve needs to come back, like now, please. What's interesting about this run, though, is that Bucky works as Captain America.
Really does.
And he shouldn't work, but he does. And it's so cool. And like you say, like the political intrigue, it feels like a grown-up comic, It's not a mature reader's book, but I think you probably appreciate it more as an adult than you do as a kid.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it hits home because like there's a lot of things within those storylines where today there's sort of like there's conversations to be had about certain things that have happened recently in our own history where you're like, where would Captain America weigh in on certain things? And the answer's clear when you read this book,
Yeah.
because he's really representative of an ideal as a part instead of a chosen position or a side. But like you said, Bucky works, getting into that history, getting into that friendship, the guilt, the it's just so cool what
Yeah.
Ed Brubaker does with this character. I mean, Captain America is always associated with Marvel superheroes, but he really puts him on the A list, like top of the heap. The way kind of Jeff Johns did with Green Lantern. Like, he took this character everybody recognizes and knows, but never after Gruenwald or Mark Waid, I don't feel Cap had that same footing
No,
until this point.
you're
And then at
absolutely
this
right.
point, it's like, yo, this guy is legit. Captain America's a badass. He is not a boring cornball character. He is
No.
wicked. And I love the Falcon. The
Sharon's great in it.
even
And the
the,
whole
the the
dynamic.
villain plot. The villain
Yeah.
plot is not quite as, like, it's good, but you're more concerned with the players and how they all are kind of fitting into this existing amongst like these Avengers that are now around, where you still have your Avengers who are standing ground and being like, yeah, we're not siding with Tony. Like, if we see Tony, we're gonna punch that sucker in the face. Like, I love this era of
That's
Marvel.
just it. The way that that universe was working, it was a coherent universe. So it worked. If you read Cap, you still got a great series. But if you're reading everything, basically, you're just so rewarded.
So yeah, 100%. And I think it's a safe bet for your money as a comic book reader if you invest in reading the whole Ed Brubaker run.
Yeah.
It's long, but is definitely worth your time and money.
Yeah. Okay. Should I take us into number 2?
Yes.
Kill or be killed.
Tell me.
Excellent. So this is kind of in a weird way, I wasn't going to call it this, but it's kind of a superhero book with no powers. This is what happens if someone does actually go, do you know what? I'm done with these criminals. I'm putting on a mask and sorting them out. But of course, it's more kind of Punisher level in a way. But then the thing is, Punisher's military trained. This is just a dude who decides he's going to kill criminals. But there's a bit more to it than that. I will read the kind of mini blurb at the back. So it says, Dylan is just an average depressed grad student, but when a failed suicide attempt changes everything he's ever known, he's propelled against his will into a life of vigilante justice. That's it. That's the blurb they went with. It's just so to the point.
Is that one volume? The whole series is collected in one volume?
Well, this is really hard to get hold of. So this is the deluxe hardcover. They've recently re-released it as a compendium. So if you want to get your hands on it, the compendium is considerably more affordable than this is right now. This is really hard to track down. They may re-release it in this format, but yeah, it's an interesting series. It's dark, like it's incredibly dark. The direction it takes as well is it gets quite weird. He finds out things about his father, and you're kind of going like, why are you doing this? Is there more to you doing this than I thought there was? This is quite strange now. Is there something more sinister going on in the background? What is all this about? But what an ending. Like, I literally can't discuss it. Whoa, I've never noticed it. Oh, I don't remember looking at extras. You only get these for the extras. You go, I'll get the deluxe, I'll get all the extras, and you look at them once and never remember what's in them. There's an illustration there by Sean Phillips of Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
Look how great that is.
It's crazy. That's really good.
It's just not the style that you're used to from him. I'm assuming that is Sean Phillips. Anyway, yes, I believe so. Yeah, there is something very special but nasty about this book, and that's right up my street. It's perfect. So very, very
special
violent.
And nasty.
Special and nasty. Bit like
nasty special.
Yeah, I've been called that before. Yes, it's well worth picking up. Expect to be sickened. So if you're a very sensitive person, please look away now. Not from this, just from the series. Yeah, it's as it escalates, you're kind of going, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this, Ed? Like, this is taking some really dark turns. But
we
the
might revisit
payoff
this
at the end is, yeah.
Because it's coming out February.
Oh, it's February it's coming out. I thought it was out.
So it could be in our incomings, and February 2025 could be on my end of the year list.
Easily.
So yeah, we might talk about this again. I'm excited to I love when you can read something cover to cover, like it's all there. I enjoy. That's why I was looking at that hardcover. I'm like, did I miss that? Now it's probably not available,
I
but
think you tried to get it before, and that's when you said to
I,
me, like, this is going for a lot of money now. Like,
yeah. So I'm happy that it's coming back in compendium. It's 20 issues, which is a nice sized. It's just a little pricey for 20 issues,
is
unless
it?
yeah, a little bit. But we'll see. I'm sure the price will fluctuate and drop. I don't think they'll keep it there.
Well, what's nice about Images compendiums is they're doing a lot of them at the moment.
Yeah,
And I think they just look great. I love having a compendium on the shelf and a row of compendiums on the shelf.
I'm
And you could see
I'm
all the
enjoying.
titles and the
Yeah,
graphics and the.
I
It's nice.
agree. I'm kind of appreciating like the price point for them, and that it's meant to be read.
Yeah.
I really like that. There's this, a certain preciousness that we have with our omnis and hardcovers, and everything's got to be done. But these, not that I want to beat and batter my books, but I do enjoy the fact like this
Yeah.
is meant for meant to be read,
Yeah.
and the story is here. Like, yeah, I really like that, and that they're doing so many compendiums.
It feels very manageable at that size as well. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend getting. If you haven't pre-ordered that compendium, do it. Treat yourself. But if you're a very sensitive person, please don't do it to yourself because it's a nasty book. But it's so good. Like just when I was kind of thinking, yeah, this is getting a bit weird now, but that payoff at the end is like, oh, it punches you square in the face and then reloads and shoots you in the head. It's
Wow.
great.
Okay. Okay.
So good.
I'm in. I'm in. All right. I'm gonna stick with Ed Brubaker at Image since you went there.
Mm.
I'm gonna pick a series I've spoken of before, and I haven't read it in a while, so I was really excited to have an excuse to read it. And this is Velvet from Steve Epting, Ed Brubaker. This is the hardcover version of it. It's all 15 issues. Keeps you at the edge of your seat. Female lead character, because she's a retired secret agent who's taking her place at a desk job, but she's thrown into this conspiracy, and she's trying to figure out how it happened, why the people involved would do such a thing, and how she's being tied into it. More than that, I guess you could get into spoilers, but what I like about it is it also gives you a bit of the back history of like this female James Bond,
Mm.
showing her relationships over the years, how she understands and was trained, and the things she's been through, while is still keeping us up to speed with the decisions she's making now. It's almost like that feeling you get from like the Dark Knight Returns, where you've got this seasoned veteran who kind of
Yeah.
knows all the tricks of the game, but also they're no longer quite in their prime,
Yeah.
but they've got to figure out a way to keep that one step ahead edge because of the people they're dealing with. So it's very clever, and it's again a good payoff at the end.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a spoiler in any way, but it's kind of like that feeling you get from Shawshank Redemption, where you're like, I like that. Like, okay, I can sit with that moment. That
Okay.
feels good.
I can't remember now. I'm thinking about it how the ending goes, but obviously don't tell me. But yeah, and that makes me want to read it again. What I do like about that though is in terms of genre and kind of breaking expectation is you pretty much always see a guy in that role. And they're pretty
Yeah.
much always, well, I mean, like James Bond, I guess, could be a bit older,
Mm-hmm.
but it's such a different take. It feels, I don't know if there's a film that's done it or if there are any other books that have done it, but I had never seen it done that way before. And it
Well, there's
feels
that.
fresh.
Yeah, there's something about it that feels authentic. Like there's that
Yeah.
movie Salt with Angelina Jolie, where
Oh,
she's
yeah.
kind of like this secret agent that you wouldn't expect to be so well trained
Hung.
and capable.
Sorry. I don't know why I said that.
But I like that this one has that 70s, like it takes place a period piece.
Mm,
So you're also working in decades or seeing even just the art design of stuff. Like it's not modern in its tech. There's still a lot of things that are still very tactile about it, which
yeah.
is part of the fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's available in a hardcover anymore, probably not, but you could definitely find them digitally, definitely find the trades. It's worth the read. It's like a really fun action movie or a season of a show that you binge watch. It's definitely got that vibe to it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if they're doing a lot of that other stuff from Image, then I would expect to see this as a compendium. Anyway, it's not actually technically that big, though, is it?
No, it's 15 issues, but I mean, the Kill or Be Killed was 20 issues, and they made a compendium for that.
Yeah.
And I think I think it was Sean Phillips. No, sorry, not Sean Phillips. Pardon me. What's the artist who's known for Scotty Young? Scotty Young had that story, that series he
Um.
did.
What was that? It was West something, wasn't it? Or
I forget. I
mm,
apologize,
yeah, I
but
didn't
that
finish
was
it.
an 18 issue series that made
Yeah.
a compendium. So this
Yeah.
could definitely be put back out there, and it's worthwhile. Like it's quality Ed Brubaker stuff. I wouldn't say this is like a hidden. Maybe it's a hidden gem in his catalog,
What
but I don't
isn't,
think so.
Eric?
What
What
is a
isn't
hidden
a
gem?
hinge?
Let me tell you. I mean, as an expert in this field. Oh boy. But yes, that's my number two. I really enjoy Brubaker doing the whole espionage bit. He just got the touch for it.
He's got the touch.
He got the touch. All right, Dave. You're
Okay.
number two.
My number two is, this was my random one. You know, I like doing these single issue things at the moment. I will just interject momentarily. There's been a certain amount of disappointment in the chat tonight about me not extending the Buckaroo game into the break. I do apologize. I was going to see how much I could stuff in my ass during the break, but maybe another time, and maybe that will be behind a paywall. So my
Good idea.
second choice
Only
is
for subscribers.
only for subscribers. Omniverse only fans. So this is Batman Turning Points. It was I believe it was a 5-issue miniseries from 2001. 2001. What it does is it delves back into Batman's history and kind of fills in some gaps. So obviously with DC constantly playing with their continuity and like, was the Killing Joke in continuity or not, for example? And then they were, actually, no, it is, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, this, funnily enough, Ed Brubaker with Dick Giordano on the art is about that very thing. So it links the death of the second Robin, Jason Todd. My brain's going, what's his name? I don't know. Is it Jeff something? It was Jason Todd. And Barbara Gordon being shot by the Joker, and the impact of that on Batman, and the connection between the two things. And when did Barbara and Batman ever talk about it, seeing as she knows he's Bruce Wayne, and we didn't seem to see that conversation, really. Not that I'm aware of. So this goes into that and kind of fills in that blank. It's maybe, okay, I mean, in fairness, it might not be one of the greatest examples of Ed Brubaker's writing, but just as an example of one of his earlier bits of writing on Batman, I think he did a run on Batman that wasn't necessarily favourable in some people's eyes as being something groundbreaking. I think if he took Batman now, it might be a different story, literally. But with this, it was interesting to see him pick up on the history, and he was kind of playing with that and filling in some of the gaps. The series itself, he writes 2 issues, so he wrote the previous issue as well, but the others are written by other people. So it's just an interesting way of kind of dipping into moments in Batman's history and playing with that time. But yeah.
Okay, I can't pick this without the completion of it.
Do it.
Which is this is an omnibus.
Okay.
And it's the best way to read it because Sleeper, which is the pick, it's the first one that him and Sean Phillips worked on together, if memory serves correct, and it exists in the Wildstorm universe. Mm-hmm. They've released it in trades, and then they re-released like a 15 issue. They made it season 1, but they never released season 2 to give you the complete story. But they did re-release the omnibus where everything is there.
Yes.
The miniseries, all the pieces to it. And I went in blind on this one just out of faith of the creative team and the reputation of, here's a complete story from Ed Brubaker, why not? And it stuck with me so much because it's that secret spy agency double. Have you read this?
John, this is, I think, possibly the first DC omnibus I bought way back when, and I've still not read it.
I highly recommend it because, you get through the first miniseries, which kind of sets the table and gives you an idea of the type of characters and the feel of the world you're going to exist in. But the ball really gets rolling when you get in touch with this character who is a secret agent spy in the way of like a SHIELD organization. But his Nick Fury, if you will, something happens where he loses contact with them. So he becomes so deeply undercover, covert with the other agency that he's trying to infiltrate that you almost forget which side he's on and how he has to play this game. And he may think that people aren't the wiser, which makes it more intriguing, because whoever he feels he may be fooling, you don't know what game he's got to play. As the reader, you're the only one going through it with him the whole way. And there's just so much betrayal and double crossing. But then, how are you gonna redeem yourself after you've had to make that? It's almost like that moment in Donnie Brasco. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I have, but a long time ago.
So there's that moment he goes so deep cover where, in the story of the movie, of course, I don't know the actual biography of Donnie Brasco if this happened, but there's that moment where he's got to make his bones, as they say, where you're gonna kill that guy that needs to be killed.
Yeah.
And he's just stopped at that point where the police come in and say, "Everybody put your hands up," and he doesn't have to do that horrible thing that would no coming back from. Whereas in this one, because you're dealing with like secret agents and whatnot, you're just like, can you come back from that? What cost? So all of that is happening with this book, and you just can't stop reading the next tale.
Are there powers? Because it's set in the Wildstorm universe, isn't it? So
it's more, funny enough, it feels more like there are powers and things in play, but the characters aren't, if memory serves, they're not superheroes.
Right.
It's like well-trained SHIELD agents.
Okay.
Very competent. And I think there are aspects where there are some supernatural, because it is, like you said, in the Wildstorm universe. But it's one of those things I'm really looking forward to rereading. Yeah, so what's new in the Omniverse, my friend?
Okay, so character reading orders. We've got Death's Head 2 from 1992 to present. That was a request for Omega Bread in the Discord. If you want to jump on our Discord, I'm not taking requests, but you can jump on there anyway. Doctor Doom, 1982 to 1991. Events and crossovers. We've got Once an Invader from 2004, an Avengers story written by Chuck Austin. Don't read it. And then we've got One Nation Under Doom. Don't read that either. From DC, Night Terrors 2023 event that a lot of people skipped. I read it on your behalf. Thank you. The Hive, which introduced the DC villains, the kind of their version of AIM, essentially, or I guess. And more recently, World's End, which was the big Earth 2 event that kind of ended the Earth 2 saga for all intents and purposes. From IDW, Escalation, which was the second Transformers crossover. Podcast and video. We've got Blackmouth, which is the promo for the Kickstarter from Kyle Smith and Katie Sawatsky. Incoming for November 2024. Also incoming for December 2024. And finally, something called The Ghost Machine Tapes with Jeff Johns. Who's that?
What? Who's that guy?
Does he do comics?
I think so. We've talked about him before, haven't we?
I think we've mentioned him. Also, you'll notice it's called The Ghost Machine Tapes, plural. Anyway, Ooh. Things are going to change on the Omniverse website as of next month. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed and have supported us in the first 2 years of our existence. We really, really appreciate it, but we've had to go through a couple of changes, but more news will be coming.
You're number 3. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Continue the countdown?
I'm ready to continue. Now, this is one hell of a run. So when Brian Michael Bendis was leaving, it was announced he was leaving Daredevil. That was heartbreaking news. And then they said like, Ed Brubaker's going to take over. And well, I know he's good, but really, how do you top this? And I don't necessarily think he tops it, but he definitely maintained that level of quality because it's so hard to top because it's so good. Like he doesn't need to top it. It's already there. And he just kept it on that high. It's such a great run. But the run I'm going to pick is, it's from Daredevil 111 to 115, which is the introduction of Lady Bullseye. So it's a new character, something you don't get to say very often in a lot of the big 2 comics, is they tend to just kind of use their standard characters. And while she's not overly fleshed out, but you can tell from there, there's some inspiration from the original Bullseye in there for her. Like she's been inspired, but what's her deal? Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that's great about this arc, and it's quite tricky to talk about, so good choice, Dave, well done, mate, is that it's all the payoffs are starting to come together. So even though it feels like, yes, it's a new arc, and it's like the penultimate arc for that run, the one after it is Return of the King, which rounds out the Brubaker era, which I was going to choose because it's so good. But even then, there's even less you can talk about because this is where everything, all the threads come together. It's great stuff. And but the point of this is it's the payoff. You're getting the payoff. This run is so strong and there's so much there to play with. The art's great. The covers are amazing. They're by Marko Djerdjevic. Look how cool that is.
So I have a question. How many Omnis are there for the Brubaker run?
There are 2.
I don't know why they stretched it to 2 when it clearly could have been all in one.
I know. I think it's like it borders into super sizable, which they have done. So I don't know. And they're not cheap either. So there are other ways to do it. You can get like the complete collections, and I think they'll probably do modern epic versions as well.
I have 2 of the complete collections, but I don't know if there's more. Like how many you would have to get the complete run, because it doesn't seem like Omnibus were worth that I have of the Brubaker stuff. So
it might be 3 for Bendis. It was 3, I think. I could be wrong, but I think it was 3.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, well, I'm very excited to read that era of Daredevil. What I have read, I read the first Ultimate Collection or Complete Collection from Bendis, and it was tremendous. Like it's so good.
What's brilliant in this as well is he plays with a character from the 80s that a lot of people forgot existed, Dakota North, or they don't even know who she is, even if you go like, oh, it's not like she turns up and you probably assume she's a new character. But no, she's been around for a long time, and she would occasionally pop up, but it would be like a little cameo as a little reference to those people who bought that 5-6 issue series. I think it was cancelled after 5, but it was about a model turned private eye. So really odd, but the way that she plays into the story is so good. It's so good because at this point, how much can I spoil? Oh, it's so hard. It's so tough. I should have gone, but the thing is, even if I talk about the first storyline, I'm spoiling the end of the Bendis run because Bendis doesn't leave it in a comfortable place. He leaves it in a place where there's still stuff to play with. So it doesn't matter what part I pick, but get the Bendis run. I know some people roll their eyes about Brian Michael Bendis these days. Why don't? He's done some fantastic stuff. You might not like his latter New Avengers and Avengers runs, so just don't read them. Read the stuff that's great. Daredevil is it. So if you get Daredevil and you're going, oh, his run's finished, keep going. Keep going. Yeah. This is well worth picking up. It's well worth owning. Get it. Get it. Treat yourself.
Yeah. My number 4. I was going to pick something that is pretty well known, but I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit, and this might be controversial. I'm not sure how people feel about it, but it is X-Men Deadly Genesis with Trevor Hairsine.
Oh, you just made me realize something really obvious that I should have picked.
What's that?
The story after Deadly Genesis.
And that's why I brought up Deadly Genesis, because it's a setup.
Yeah.
A 6-issue setup to lay the groundwork of a really great story that follows, which is not my pick. You're thinking of the Shi'ar Empire War? Is that
what was it called? The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire.
That one. Yes. And that leads into, and the reason I didn't want to go into that one is because it leads to War of Kings.
Yes.
Right? Is that the War of, which all the things that come out from that with what he sets up in Deadly Genesis, which is controversial because you're tapping into a very classic, beloved X-Men storyline moment, which relaunches them as a team. Their identity is kind of associated with that mutant Are you okay?
There was a lot of sugar in there.
Looks like you took a shot of whiskey.
Oh.
Welcome back, Dave.
Oh, yeah, Aaron took it. It's all fun. Everything's great.
Yes, so Deadly Genesis kind of is that, I don't know if revisionist history is the right, because it's not history, but it's that retconning a little bit of continuity as we know it to insert something that becomes very important in storylines to come.
Yes.
Which is a brave choice to make, to like take a moment of what was like the relaunch of the X-Men and say, here's what was really happening that you didn't see on the other camera. And I like Trevor Hairsine's work. He was the artist, right? I encountered him with Valiant comics, as well as doing the Deceased with Tom Taylor. He's been the artist on those books. I really like.
Oh, right. Okay, that's cool.
So, 6-issue miniseries leads into a really, really great storyline. Not to say that this one is, but it's the stepping stones that lead to some really good stuff.
Yes.
That I feel that if you leave out Deadly Genesis, which could be controversial for people, but it does lay the groundwork for Vulcan, who
Yeah.
is a son of a bitch.
Oh, he is big time, like big time, and rapidly becomes so.
Right,
Like a key
right.
player.
A key player. And so what I appreciated about this story was I was tentative of I had the I tried to, like a dork, collect all of the War of Kings tie-ins and storylines and put them all together in
Yeah.
trades
Oh, right.
instead of just getting an because the omnibus wasn't available. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it together and read it. And I never read it that way. I ended up reading it in omnibus form. And I loved all the stuff that Brubaker wrote leading, like the Shire, the fall, rise and fall of the Shire Empire was really good.
Really
And
good.
I didn't think that I would like it because
Well, neither did I.
yeah,
But I loved it.
did
And
not.
Warpath is so good in it. He became my favorite cast member.
Yeah, it's such a good book. You didn't have your superstar X-Men cast necessarily, but the way he used all the other characters were just right.
Yeah. Really interesting,
Yeah.
weird choice of characters, but it really worked. It shouldn't have, but it
Yeah.
really, really worked.
It shouldn't. Yeah. So it was a debate between picking what is included in the War of Kings whole crossover, but this also is part of it.
Yeah.
But this is where to begin.
Well, you
Check
say
it out.
that. Now, if you want to read the whole Cosmic Saga, I've done a 2-part Marvel Cosmic reading order. Because Deadly Genesis does impact and it introduces a key player, I've included it in that reading order. So if you want to know how to work your way through Annihilation and the Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire and all that stuff, so it all builds up to this, it's all there and it's all in order.
That's amazing that you did that.
It was a lot of work.
Marvel was firing on all cylinders during that decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound like, well, back in those, it was a great time.
2004 to 2010. Perfect.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Numero cuatro. That's okay.
Okay, bear with me on this one because I really wanted to reread this before the episode and I just didn't get a chance. But my number 4 is Fatale, and this was the book that made me realise just how good Phillips and Brubaker are as a team. It was, I think, the first book I'd read of theirs together, so it's not the first thing they did, but this is your film noir with Cthulhu mythos stuff thrown into it. We've mentioned this Cthulhu mythos stuff a few times with various different titles, but this is how to do it right. So it really pays homage to that whole era and those kind of noir films, PI films. It's so cool. I'm gonna read the blurb again for this one just to make sure I get it right. So Josephine is cursed, and in this innovative series we follow her from 1950s San Francisco, where crooked cops hide deeper evils, to mid-70s Los Angeles, where burnt-out actors and ex-cult groupies are caught in her dark web of death and desire. 24 issues. They're either going to release or have released it as a compendium, one book. So it's in two deluxe hardcovers, oversized, or one compendium.
It's coming out in a compendium.
There we go. When is that?
Yep.
Did it say?
Today, it's out.
Oh, good. Wow.
It's currently out. Yes.
Again, treat yourself.
How many issues?
24, but it's definitely not for young eyeballs. It's dark. And I read this as a new parent, and there are some bits in it that I found quite hard to read as a new parent.
Okay.
So be warned. It's brutal. When they are brutal, but it doesn't feel gratuitous. It suits the story, you know?
Yeah.
So it's you could just go for shock value, but it's not.
Everything matters. It's not just there to be gratuitous.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a difference.
And you also get plenty of nudity, so that's a big win for me. I like that. Phillips is just gold on this. Oh, there's some now. I won't show you. I might stay on these pages for a bit. I'm just going to turn my camera off. So, yeah, it's oh wow, the style in this is so cool as well. It feels very boxed in. It feels very claustrophobic. The way that they've laid out the pages and the way they've worked the panels, it's so much fun. But in again a dark and nasty way. You can tell the kind of stuff that really resonates with me is all the stuff that's horrible.
Dark and nasty.
Dark and
Special
nasty.
And nasty.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they wrote that on my school report. Every year, H5.
He's a very dark and
dark,
nasty
special,
boy.
And nasty.
Special, but nasty.
Hang on, we'll get him from the cupboard and give him back to you, Mrs. Molyneux. His cupboard.
Boy, Dave.
He's scratching now. I can hear him.
I never know where to go now when you do these little segues. Okay, so my fifth pick is going to stay in that Hollywood noir genre, and it's going to be Fade Out. What I like so far about our list is that they're long extended runs that you can pick, a couple issues here or there, and then there's this one's a nice 12-issue miniseries, or maxi series, I should say, that, again, no superheroes, no power, but you get really involved in these characters. I'll read the description of it for those who haven't heard of or read Fade Out yet. It's a epic graphic novel of Hollywood in the early days of the Blacklist. The Fade Out tracks the murder of an up-and-coming starlet from studio backlot to the gutter in downtown Los Angeles. The shell-shocked frontman, Charlie Parrish, is caught between his own dying sense of morality and his best friend's righteous sense of justice. Top-notch stuff. I feel like this would make a great television show, makes it an even better comic book. It's just the beats, the storytelling, the world that they build, that Hollywood Babylon era of that doesn't feel like much has changed, but he really nails it. You feel that he's got an insider's knowledge of things that went on during a certain era. They bring an authenticity to that time because, again, kind of like Velvet. I don't know about when does the era of Fatale take place?
It was 50s to 70s. So I think, this is set earlier, but I think there was the Fade Out was released after Fatale. So there's like a logical flow in a way to it. There's almost like an overlap to some degree, but they're not connected, but it feels.
Yeah. They're not, no.
Yeah.
But there's this, you feel he's got that insider's knowledge about it because for Hollywood stories like this and their period pieces, you really feel in that world while you're reading it. And again, the Fade Out is one of those books. It's off the beaten path of superheroes. Now you're dealing in, genre and somebody really just telling a great story and illustrating the hell out of it. And I feel you get a lot of appreciation for how good an artist is when they're not drawing the big, powerful, colorful stuff. Now you're really paying attention to the pacing and to the scenery behind them and feeling like you got to be there. There's something special about stories that eliminate those, I guess, powers, if you will.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually, because then it does hone it down to, because like those chat pages normally happen in between the big bombastic battles, the big punch ups, and you're kind of going, Yeah. I read all the word balloons, but I didn't necessarily look at the pictures of people sat in a diner. But this makes you look too, because there are clues and there's other things going on in there, and it all adds to the atmosphere. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. It's kind of it not to compare it, but it's kind of like those moments in a Quentin Tarantino movie where you kind of look around the room of what else is there, because like, who's that guy? Why is that guy there? What's that thing on the shelf? Because that thing on the shelf probably means something, right?
Yeah.
And with these type of books, you become a little more attentive to that, because the setting and where they're eating dinner in the house, like, it's telling you something about how you're supposed to feel about this stuff. But very seedy. Again, there's that darkness to this world, and with friends like these, who needs enemies type of world you're in.
So excellent.
You're number 5. What's your number 5? And do you got a 5-starer?
It's a 4-starer to end. So I kind of feel like we should end on the Fade Out, and I won't talk about this book. But do you know what? This is back to the superheroics, but it doesn't necessarily feel superheroic-y. You can see it off camera, can't you? Looky. Look at what have you got? Is that the trade?
This is the trade of just his first half,
Ah,
not with the Dwayne Serzwinski
right.
ending. So this goes up to issue 1 to 16.
Okay. I mean,
It was
that's the
on my
bit.
list.
That's the
I
bit.
switched. Yeah,
Oh, you switched. What did you switch out with? Out of curiosity.
I put Deadly Genesis instead,
Oh, I see.
just to mix it up.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that was going to take the.
I'm relieved
So I'm
because
happy you're bringing it up. Yes.
yes. So this is written with Matt Fraction. It's hard to know how
Mhm.
that pairing works. I wasn't sure what their process was. It'd be interesting to know what their process was because they worked together on
Yeah.
X-Men as well. But this ties quite closely in with Daredevil, and I can't say much more
Okay.
than that. But yes, so 1 to 16 is the run. Like Eric just said, I am going to mention there are some other issues that tie in, and I used to know these off the top of my head, but I don't anymore. But there's Civil War Choosing Sides. There's a story from that. Immortal Iron Fist Annual 1, Orson Randall and the Green Mist of Death, and the origin of Danny Rand. There's they released a one-shot called The Origin of Danny Rand, which had the first appearance kind of bookended with some new story elements. But this really builds on the character's origins and the world of Iron Fist in such a way that you're kind of going, do you need to, though? I mean, do you need to? Yeah, it turns out we needed it. We needed this book. This is so good. And it has to be read in its completion. So what was originally 3 trades, I think, then became that book you're showing me. This also collects the Dwayne, please to help me with the name.
Swarzynski?
Oh, are you guessing as well?
Swarzynski?
I can't. It's on here and
I
I
think
can't.
that's how you say it. Swarzynski. Yeah.
Swazinski, yeah, I think you're
Dwayne
right.
Swarzynski.
So it collects all the other stuff as well. But I mean, it introduced the idea of all the other Iron Fists, which is perfectly logical. And we didn't really touch on that in the character's history. But this does all that. And it
Really good.
introduces Orson Randall, who has a very familiar sounding name and is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen in anything. I just loved this character so much. He's just so cool. It's like you can kind of go, he's noir Iron Fist with guns, but it doesn't do the character justice because like he's just he's a pulp adventure hero kind of character, but not necessarily
Yeah,
a
that's the way
good
to put
guy.
it.
But these were brilliant, and
It's
people are very. I mean, this again was something that same time period. Meat Trunks is saying same time period. Jan said saying he loved reading these books. This is such a loved run, but it's also often overlooked because it's a lower tier character. And people nowadays, if they think of Iron Fist, they often think of the Netflix show. Forget the Netflix show. Wash thy brain out and read this book. It's brilliant. I don't know what the Dwayne issues are like. Because I dropped the title after that, I didn't feel like I needed to read them. So they'll be new to me when I do read them. I am going
I
to give them
haven't
a
read
try.
I haven't read it either, and I feel like I've read Dwayne Straczynski stuff with Valiant, and I liked it, but I didn't give this a chance because it wasn't Brubaker and Fraction anymore.
Yeah,
But man,
same.
when I got into collecting a lot more broad spectrum, like give me just good stuff, my comic shop owner recommended Iron Fist and Hawkeye from Fraction, the David
Oh,
Aha
yeah.
connection
Oh,
between
that's
the two,
such a
right?
good book.
And so I gave those both of those books a try around the same time, and I was
Right.
just reading gold.
Yeah.
And again, a character that like Iron Fist, who I had no investment in other than knowing his name or having seen him in a video game and whatnot.
Right. Is he
The
in a game?
richness of the
What game is
world,
he in?
yeah, he was in, I think, like Marvel Heroes United, something like that on
Oh,
Xbox, like an old video game. But it was the richness of this world of Kunlun and the history of all the different Iron Fists being
yeah.
passed down, like this legacy character, and how I was so excited for the television show because of this book.
Same.
And I thought for sure base it around this feel of this world and this type of the tournament and all of the different
Yes. Essentially, there's an
not
Iron
tribes,
Fist
but
from numerous other mystical cities, and they converge. And
you
this is all the
like
build up to that. A big tournament of all
yes,
these immortal weapons, as they're called, because Iron Fist is an immortal
yes,
weapon, but he's not the only
yes.
immortal weapon, and that's what's and like
Huh.
Bride of Nine Spiders and Fat Cobra, and all these other new characters, and you're going, these are so cool. Everything is so cool. And where's this going?
It's like Street Fighter.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically feels like Street Fighter, but it's just so incredibly cool. But it doesn't then do what you think it's going to do. You're like, oh, you rug-pulling bastards. Like, this is so cool. And it's great. It's a great read. Plus, you get Luke Cage. You get the Daughters of the Dragon, Misty Knight, and Colleen Wing.
Yes.
You get those characters that are from the Heroes for Hire era as well. You should. But he's still the central character. And you've got Orson Randall and all these other... Oh, it's just an absolute treat.
It's rich.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you mentioned it because there's a lot to like. I was going to say Meat Trunks just made a comment saying that earlier Eric said something that treat yourself to Brubaker's run on Cap, but he could have said treat yourself to read all of Brubaker's career. And that's the point of lists like this, is that it's easy for us to recommend and direct you to places where it's going to be worth your money.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who, there's writers that are a little bit more polarizing. They're really, really loved.
Yeah.
And then there's people who I don't want to deal with that guy at all. Whereas in this case, Brubaker's stuff across the board, there's just he's a great collaborator. And I think it was Omega Bread in the comments mentioned that we didn't even bring up Gotham Central or Criminal or Incognito, all things that I was thinking about. They were ready to go, but there's a lot to pick.
Yes.
But Iron Fist is such a great selection. I'm happy you ended it with that because I felt bad leaving it out. But
no, well, it had to be in there. It's so good. I'm not going to read out Omega Bread's comment, but I want to.
Yes. Oh, boy.
If you're wondering, then this is why you should join the live. If you don't want to listen to us two yammer on for longer than we normally do in the edit,
right.
You can read all of Omega Bread's smut.
That's right. It belongs in a Brubaker and Sean Phillips book.
It does.
Right.
There's so much.
A lot of
watch
safe bets.
And there's stuff we haven't mentioned, and I really want to read. Is it Reckless? I really want to read Reckless, but I haven't managed to get to it yet.
I've read one
bits,
arc of Criminal.
Yeah, me too.
There's a DC run from Ed Brubaker that I just adore. Catwoman of East End.
Of course. I still haven't read that. Darwin Cook wrote the Parker, the comic versions of Parker. So this is a 2-volume set. These are huge books. Look at the size of this beast. But they are beautiful comics. Now, the thing is, there was a story he didn't get to do before we lost him. But the story was covered instead by another creative team. And, there's a part of you that's kind of thinking, I don't think I want someone else doing it. And it turns out it was Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. So if you get the Martini edition, you will have access to the Phillips and Brubaker storyline from Parker. I don't know if it's included in the compendium they did. They did a paperback version. It might be in there.
They did. I have that downstairs.
Oh, you do? Check. Take a look. It suits the style of the book. It's still that very kind of singular color. It's very old school. Looks like old school comics. But this... it's
so good.
Really, it smells good, but I haven't read it yet. It's lovely.
Nothing right?
There's something about that.
Such a nerds.
Oh, I know.
They're such nerds.
But hey, we love it.
That's great.
Oh, I can't get it.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our Ed Brubaker top 10. Dave, are you going to send us off?
You carry on. I'm going to have another game of Buckaroo.
Let's ride the Buckaroo out of here. Everybody, thank you for joining us. It's been a couple weeks since we've gone live. We're happy to be back. We love hanging out with all of you folks that tuned in. We hope that you enjoyed the Brubaker top 10.
It's a red lantern.
There you go. Of course it was. Don't forget to check out omniversecomics.guide. There's the Red Lantern. And if you want to hear about Red Lanterns, you should listen to our Jeff Johns episode.
Hey.
We talked about a Red Lantern. Hey, plug. Yes, don't forget to visit the omniversecomics.guide website. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on any of the podcast platforms, please give us a review, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it makes a difference. Don't forget omniversecomics.guide. We will be back with more reading orders. Dave will be back with reading orders. We'll be back with more interviews, podcasts. Can't wait.